Hey, y'all. Tiffany Lesnick with Live Free Legal. I am sorry we're a couple minutes late. We actually thought we were live already. So Hope and I have already been talking for 5 minutes. So poor Hope, she's going to have to listen to me all over again. But hopefully you've had a chance to log in and get settled and start eating your lunch. But welcome, everyone, to Live Free Legal. I'm Tiffany Lesnick, a North Carolina domestic violence attorney, survivor, and founder of Live Free Legal, where faith meets fierce advocacy. This is our monthly live Q&A. We hold one the third Thursday of every month at noon Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube at Live Free Legal. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We have a giveaway today during the Q&A, so stay with us for more information on that. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and today's conversation addresses one of the most important and difficult realities survivors may face: the connection between domestic violence, mental health, family court, and lethality risk. This webcast is not intended to create fear. It is intended to bring awareness, education, and ultimately hope and protection for you and your family. Our special guest today is Hope Hooton. Hope is the founder of Hope in the Pain, host of the podcast, The Voices Against Filicide, author of the book, There's Still Hope, and a mother whose life was forever changed when her late husband killed their 2 precious children and then himself during an ongoing family court case. Despite unimaginable loss, Hope has become a powerful advocate for awareness, healing, and hope. I know that today's conversation can be triggering and hard to hear, but abuse survives in the darkness, and we are going to shine the light on the dangers of abuse so that you can learn to protect yourself and your children. This discussion includes sensitive topics, including domestic violence, child loss, filicide, suicide, and family court trauma. Please take care of yourself while watching. You are welcome to listen quietly without commenting, step away if needed, and return to the conversation when you feel ready, or just log off altogether. Finally, this webcast is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice, mental health counseling, or crisis intervention. So now I want to introduce my guest. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that this week is especially difficult for Hope. May 14th was her daughter Lydia's birthday, and this week also marks the anniversary of the day she lost both of her beautiful children. Hope, thank you for your willingness to be here with us today. Please know there's no pressure to share anything that feels too difficult today. We're honored by your presence and grateful for your courage.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany.
And so, Hope, for those who are meeting you for the first time, would you share a little bit about your heart, your ministry, and what led you to create Hope in the Pain?
Yeah, so my heart is to help those still struggling in the family court system and still trying to protect their children. I can't bring Alec and Lydia back, but I can help save other children and victims of domestic violence. I started Hope in the Pain as an outlet for me to share my journey of grief and healing on social media. And then that ministry turned into something that I couldn't have imagined without God's help and God opening the doors that he has. It has just flourished into something so much bigger than I ever thought.
Yeah, your story is amazing. And actually, we're just going to jump right into, so you just published a book, There's Still Hope. I have my book right here, yeah. and I'm actually going to share. Well, I'm going to try to share.
I have my book.
Okay, you have your book too. I'll see if I can share a photo of it as well. So where can they get a copy of your book?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. If they just type in There's Still Hope and then they type in my name, Hope Hooton, it will come up. They also can get it on Kindle if they have a Kindle ebook version or paperback. It will also be available very, very shortly on Audible. I just recorded the audio version, and that should be going live in the next few weeks.
That's awesome. And I'll tell you, it is such an amazing read. I picked it up. I read it like in one sitting. And I want to go through some of it probably towards a little bit of the end of our show, but it's it's a beautiful book, and it really does go through kind of the beginning of your life, through the very end, of your current story, kind of like where you are right now.
Yes.
But I was really just from chapter 1, just from your birth, we think about trauma, and what we experience, these traumatic experiences that we have throughout our life, and just even reading about your birth and the struggles you had being born premature, and just that struggle, and that trauma for you, and then what you had to go through school and education, and the struggles that you had. It's just, you've had a rough time. And so it's just a beautiful story. So I would really encourage y'all to check this book out. It's an amazing story. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk about that a little bit towards the end.
I just wanted to say it is a #1 bestseller on Amazon in multiple different categories. So if you do get it, you'll get the one that's showed on the picture right there with the actual little embossment that says bestseller.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. So Hope, I want to talk about May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so as you reflect on your story, well, first of all, let's talk about your story a little bit. So you were married.
Yeah.
Tell us when you were married.
Yeah, we got married August 15th, 2015. Before we got married, I was friends with him and we dated for a couple of years. And then, like I said, got married in August of 2015. So, yeah.
And can you tell us his name?
Yeah, Brock Mader.
Okay. And how soon after you all met did you end up getting married?
Probably like 2 or 3 years after we met.
Okay, 2 to 3 years after you met. Did you find, like, in the beginning of your relationships with him that he had like the typical abusive personality traits, very intense, pushy, wanting things to go really quickly?
Yeah, his way or no way. And looking back on it now, right after lots of therapy, I saw, coercive control trickling in, manipulation, down to like the little things. Like if I would say, let's go, if he would say, let's go out to eat. And I would he'd be like, where do you want to go? And I'd list a couple of restaurants. He wouldn't pick the ones I listed. He would want to go to whatever he wanted to go to, even though he asked me if, I wanted to pick the restaurant. So just little tiny manipulation things, all the way up to when we did get married. He wanted to be involved with the color scheme and picking out the bridesmaids' dresses and just things that now I know aren't normal. Like I didn't notice back then. I just thought like, oh, he wants to be helpful. And like, I didn't realize how much control he actually had.
Right. Yeah. And okay. So right from the very beginning, right, you were noticing some abusive tendencies. Did you know that it was abuse right from the beginning?
No. And like I said, I didn't recognize those things until way after. So I didn't recognize it. Like I said, it was just like, oh, he's just being helpful. He wants to be involved. And like, I didn't, I came from the Christian faith where, the male is the leader of the household. And like, he was, asserting that. And I didn't think anything of it was abuse at the very beginning, because it wasn't like when in my head growing up, and a lot of us still believe that abuse is only physical, right? And he wasn't physically hurting me at this point. So all of the manipulation and coercive control, all the stuff in the background, I didn't recognize as abuse back then.
Right. And so I want to talk about your 2 precious children. So I have a picture of them here. This is Lydia and Alec. Can you tell us about them?
Yeah, so Lydia just had turned 6, 5 days before she died. And she loved unicorns and arts and crafts and playing with Play-Doh. She loved to swim in our new pool and at our new house that I bought for them just a few months before they passed. And she was Alec's shadow. She did everything that he did. She wanted to play in his room with his toys. She just wanted to follow her big brother around. They were super close as siblings, as you can tell in the picture. I didn't even have to prompt them to do that. They did it on their own. Alec was 7, and he loved Pokemon and Trail Life USA. He was a member of Trail Life for 2 years, where they like build fires and read about the Bible and tie knots and all the outdoor activities. He loved playing basketball and soccer, and they both loved worshiping and praising Jesus. We were really close to our church community, and they were brought up in the church, and they were well known at our church because we were not just Sunday attendees. We helped in the church and led Bible studies and life groups and helped with volunteer stuff. So our kids were always running around the church, and they were just amazing human beings and just lights of joy. And it was amazing to be their mom for as long as I got to on this earth. And I still am their mom. I'm just their mom in a different capacity now.
Right. And you actually have a tattoo of Pikachu and a unicorn on your arm.
Yeah, I do.
When did you get that tattoo?
I got it last October. October 2025. I wanted something to be a memorial tattoo, but something that was really unique, that wasn't like anybody else's. And so my brother-in-law and my sister, who I'm very close to, helped me create the tattoo using AI. And the tattoo artist was amazing. I shopped around and made sure I had the proper tattoo artist that could do the color, that could do the vibrantness of what I wanted. Kind of looks like pop art, so it kind of pops off my arm, so it looks like I could just take a washcloth and wipe it off, but it's an actual tattoo.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. That's awesome. And I'm going to add another little photo to the stage here. This is our sweet girl, Lydia. I think you just recently posted this online.
Okay. I don't see it yet, but
you can see it. When you talk. Happy 8th heavenly birthday.
Oh, yes.
A little Moana. It looks like a little Moana shirt or dress on.
Yep. That was her nightgown. She wanted to go out in her nightgown and her little moccasin boots. And I was like, you don't want to get dressed? Like, you're going to go play at the park? And she's like, no, I want to wear my Moana outfit and like my nightgown and my little moccasins. I'm like, okay. So I let her.
Yeah. Sweet children. So tell us about, and you said that Brock also was a believer.
Yes.
Okay. So these kind of tragedies, these horrible things can happen even with believers, even with families within the church. So this is not isolated. This is not, this isn't just for particular families or particular segments of society. These kind of tragedies can happen regardless of, whether you're a part of the church or you're not a part of the church, your belief system. When did you realize that mental health was an important part of your story?
Yeah. I saw a little bit, again, hindsight's always 2020, but there was mood swings and erratic behavior a little bit before we separated. I would say a lot of it started after the passing of my parents. My mom died in a car accident in 2021, and my dad died of kidney failure just 7 months later in July of 2022. And I think after that, he kind of spiraled and the mood swings were kind of like up and down. And I didn't know what was wrong. But then after we separated is when the mental health kind of like showed its face. And I often state, like, to everyone else, like, an abuser that's willing to be violent towards their spouse, they aren't like a typical person. Like, there has to be, in my opinion, something going on in their brain chemically to be able to hurt their children or their spouse. Like, that's not normal. So like when I talk about that, like I'm not saying like everybody that's an abuser has like mental illness. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like there has to be something. If we study abusers, there has to be something chemically wrong, because like I'm not like, gonna go and hurt someone. But yeah, so I noticed that that started to escalate when I separated. He threatened to commit suicide in front of our children when I asked for a divorce, which was crazy, out of left field. Like I said, he was abusive and stuff before and had like mood swings, but he never threatened suicide. And I know now that that was a coercive control power dynamic technique, but after that incident, it escalated where it was no longer just coercive control. It was severe mental instability. And we know that because he also, a few days later, took the kids out of school without me knowing, took them to a hotel, and then he called 911 on himself because he was having thoughts of demons and cults, and he thought our church was the Church of Satan, and just very biblical ideologies that we don't believe in. And he was in like mania is what they call it. And that started to bleed into psychosis, where he started hearing voices. And so that's when I understood that, okay, this isn't just a coercive control like thing to try to get me to stay. He's actually going through like a mental break, like with mania, with psychosis. And he was actually taken into a facility voluntarily. When the police talked to him, when they arrived at the hotel, they asked him if he would like to go, and they convinced him to go. And he was in a facility for psychiatric care for 9 days. And like, they don't just keep people in a psychiatric facility for that long if they're just like, they can tell. And so he had severe issues, and that's why he stayed so long. So, yeah.
Was that the only time he'd been committed? Just that one time?
He was, when he threatened suicide the first time, he did go to the hospital for like a 1 to 2 hour like evaluation, but then he was released. So the only time he was actually omitted for the psychiatric stay was the 9-day stay.
Yeah. Okay. And I want to differentiate for our audience, Hope, because I know, mental health by itself is not necessarily a warning sign that Correct. Your spouse is going to either kill themselves, kill you, or your children, right?
Correct.
There are compounding factors with that. So
Correct.
What was it with Brock's like behavior where you really started to see some red flags that maybe looked differently than someone who's struggling with anxiety or depression or something like that they're getting treatment for? When did you know? Was it the voices?
Yeah, it was the mania. It was the psychosis. He was diagnosed with bipolar, with psychosis, with severe mania. And he omitted those things in our court documents, which we'll get to, where it just says bipolar. If you look up our case, if you look up court docs, it just says bipolar. He omitted the psychosis with the mania. And so I know that now because I've looked at the actual psychiatric documents from the facility, and it says his actual diagnosis. So again, that's kind of where my story starts, because he omitted those two crucial factors. And even if he did omit them, the judge should have paid attention to just the bipolar and just how he was presenting and how he heard voices and was speaking of demons and cults and had the, filicidal ideation and the suicidal ideation as well. So those are huge lethality markers. I mean, when you have ideation of not only harming yourself, but also ideation of harming your children, those are huge things that people should pay attention to.
Right. And yes, so psychosis, or being in a psychotic state, right? We're stepping out of reality.
Correct.
Right. So we're hearing things We're believing things that just don't exist in
Correct.
reality, and that's when things can become dangerous, right? Because we are hearing voices that are telling us to do things that could be very, very dangerous. And unfortunately, I think what we have to understand, me as an attorney, attorneys and judges, their training they usually have undergraduate degrees in criminal justice, history, political science, government, right? They don't have backgrounds in humanities, psychology, sociology, mental health. They don't, and they don't understand it. They don't understand the diagnoses, and they don't always understand when things are dangerous. So tell us where you were in the family court process when he was IVC'd, when he was being diagnosed with bipolar disorder with psychosis.
Oh, we were at the very beginning. So that first time when he threatened suicide, when I asked for a divorce, that was Monday, October 9th, 2023. Then he had the psychiatric break on the following Monday, October 16th, 2023. Then I got a emergency temporary order put in place because of that psychiatric break. The judge did grant that for me. And I had pretty much full custody of the kids, physical and legal, until we could have another court date. And he had 4 hours of supervised time during that time, but he didn't use those 4 hours of supervised time because he was in the facility. And then when he got out of the facility, then he went back to be with family in a different state. So he never even had those 4 hours of supervised visits. I think I had the kids a total of like 30 to 40-ish days before he actually saw them again. And so when we went to the emergency temporary orders hearing, I stated that I wanted the judge's orders that he granted previously to stay in place. I wanted Brock to still see the kids, to have those 4 hours of supervised visitation, but then I would have the kids the rest of the time, because I didn't want the kids to be away from him completely, but I wanted him to be supervised. And I thought, okay, 4 hours a week, like that's good. They can still see him. And unfortunately, he came in, and I now know that it was his attorney that came up with this whole plan. He came in with 50-50, wanting 50-50 unsupervised. He wanted them on specific dates because of Alec having trail life. They had this whole schedule worked out. They had, and he was very calm and he was really good virtually on the camera, because he was virtual and I was in person. He was very calm and collected. And the judge, I think, was like, oh, well, he, seems better. He went to the psychiatric facility. He got the help. He asked for help. He called 911. He's on medication now. Like, everything's all good. And unfortunately, he was granted 50-50 unsupervised just a couple weeks after that psychiatric stay, even though I wanted the supervised visits, the 4 hours of supervised visitation time to continue. And the only thing I can think of is the judge wasn't knowledgeable in mental health. The judge, in my opinion, was lazy. He didn't, there was stuff that Brock said when he was cross-examined that if the judge was paying any attention, that he would have been like, oh, that's not a normal statement. So for instance, my attorney asked Brock, do you believe that you put Alec and Lydia in danger that night that you called the police and the police came and had their guns drawn at the door? And he said, no, I don't believe that they are in danger, or they were in danger, because they were asleep. And so any lame person would be like, just because you're asleep doesn't mean that you're not in danger. If there's guns drawn at you, a couple feet away at the door, just because you're asleep doesn't mean if your house is on fire, you're safe. You have to still get out of your house. It's on fire. And so when he said that on the record, I was like, okay, yep, we got it. Like, he's not going to give him unsupervised. Like, he's telling him out of his mouth, like, this is not a normal person. And so unfortunately he did give him 50-50 unsupervised. So I had to go along with it, and I had to co-parent with my abuser, and do the best that I could. We also asked for a psychological evaluation to be done, separately from the psychiatric facility, because we didn't have those records. So we wanted a psychological evaluation. That was granted after we had to go back and actually remind the judge, hey, you didn't put this in the first orders. Like, again, it was just very sloppy work by the judge. Like we had to go back and ask for things that we had already asked for previously that he didn't grant or didn't even talk about in the orders. So he finally granted that, and he had a psychological evaluation done. And it wasn't a full psychological evaluation. It wasn't done by the psychologist wasn't there with us, and he didn't talk about anything. The psychologist didn't even call me and ask me any additional background information about me. It was only about Brock. And so he went in, and a lot of the stuff in the psychological report is not accurate. Brock omitted things or lied about things. And the psychologist didn't know because he didn't have any other background information. The other thing that is concerning in the psychological report that the judge did not catch was Brock self-reported that he didn't believe that his psychiatric medication was working. He self-reported to the psychologist, and the judge didn't catch it, and the psychologist didn't put it in the summary, which I'm assuming the judge just looked at the summary. He didn't even go over the full report. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I believe that was the case, and it wasn't in the summary, so he didn't catch it. But again, this was a whole systemic failure. It wasn't just the judge that messed up. It was my attorney. It was Brock's attorney. It was DCS, Department of Child Services, because there was an open case on that, and it got closed because of insufficient evidence or something. So everybody was involved, and nobody chose to do anything. And my hands were tied because I was asked to co-parent with my abuser. And at that point, after so many attempts of hey guys, this is not normal, you should pay attention, it was kind of I was hopeless. And I was kind of I have to just do this. And I can't, it was hard.
Yeah.
So
it is hard when you have this whole system in place that you feel is working against you. And it's a system of power, right? So you do feel powerless in that process. And that's why family court is so traumatizing, right? To women going through this. We're taking our precious children that we love with all of our hearts and putting them into the hands of children who are taking very little time. In some cases you get an hour-long hearing to assess critical information.
We didn't even get an hour. I got 15 minutes. He got 15 minutes. We didn't. Yeah. There's no hour.
Yeah.
No.
So, and again, they don't have the experience. What I'll say about Child Protective Services is if you already have a family court case pending, they usually say, services are not recommended or services aren't needed because you already have a pending case. These agencies and systems tend to punt things back and forth to one another.
Yep. You take it. No. And they're still doing that, right? Nobody is taking blame. They're all pointing the finger at each other, and we're 2 years out from their murders, and they're still doing that. So
yes, absolutely. So and just to let everybody know, coming up, in the next few months, I'm actually going to be talking with psychologists because I've been talking with them about how the measures that they use for psychological evaluations are actually not adequate and are not good for detecting antisocial personality disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, abusive personalities. We just don't have effective ways of assessing for those types of personalities, or the tests that we're using are not the right ones.
Correct.
So I'm going to be talking with some psychologists coming up in our next Q&As about what type of measures do you need to be asking for. The MMPI-3 is not a good measure for dealing with these types of guys, right? They typically are going to answer responses dishonestly and in a way that projects themselves in a really positive light. So if you're hoping to have a psychological evaluation that turns out that shows that he's dangerous or incompatible with parenting, or has narcissistic personality or antisocial personality disorder, you're probably not going to get that result. So I do have I've got some Q&As coming up all about that. So just put that on your radar. So you said, Hope, it was 2 weeks after he was discharged from a 9-day IVC that he got 50-50 custody.
Correct. Unsupervised 50-50 custody. Yeah.
Okay. And the judge just completely disregarded the fact that he had been committed for.
Yeah. He believed. Yeah. He thought, and I think this is a lot of people's, again, there's not education around this, right? And so this is also what I'm really trying to push is like, yes, we're trying to teach all of like your audience and we're trying to teach the public, but we really need to educate these judges, because he thought that like, oh, well, Brock called 911 on himself. Brock got the help he needed. Brock's medicated now. Like, he didn't realize that in research, it states that the first psychiatric break, the first case of mania, is the most dangerous, because you don't know anything. You don't have a baseline to go off of. You don't know if the medications are going to work. You don't know if you're going to have to do medication 6 different times. You don't know how his mania is going to transpire, or if he's going to relapse. And we know that with bipolar, with mania, they're even on meds, you're going to have another psychiatric break. That's just how bipolar, with mania, with psychosis, that's how it transpires, even when you're on meds. And so I think his misunderstanding of that, and like, oh, well, he got the help, he's fine. I think that was his like, okay, he's good. Right. It was kind of like, if he would have taken a Tylenol, he would have been all better. And I'm thinking in my head, and my attorney as well, like, yes, my attorney did things wrong in my case, but I do believe at the very beginning, at this point, he was like, there's no way that this judge is going to grant 50-50. Like, you know, even a lame person, I mean, even I have no psychiatric background, and I'm like, there's no way. And unfortunately he did. And he also took, he put some really weird things in our orders, in our temporary orders. We asked if there would be some way how Brock could have his medications checked, meaning like if he was actually taking them, could that be monitored by the courts? Meaning like the next time we showed up to court, Brock would have to show some sort of documentation. That's what we wanted. Unfortunately, the judge was like, well, if Hope wants to know if he's taking his medication, Hope can ask him. That's in the orders. Like, how would I be able to ask him? I have a protection order against him. He's my abuser. And asking him if he took his meds or not is not going to tell us anything.
Right.
So, like, again, that's just, you know, laziness or misunderstanding of what's going on, not really caring about your case and what you have in front of you.
Right. And that really bothers me when there's protective orders in place and judges give joint legal decision-making authority. You know, it's like, how are you going to make decisions together if there's abuse, but you have a protective order where you can have limited communication, contact? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think judges idealize like the family unit, and that y'all, like in the utopia perfect world, we are all going to get along perfectly.
And it's not the case.
If we're in family court, if we're in front of a judge, right, we're not getting along. There are big problems. And so I do want to talk about the top lethality factors in family court cases. So we don't just have mental health, right? So the more lethality factors we have, the higher your risk increases.
For filicide, yes.
Yes. homicide, right? And I think there's also a term familicide, like
Familicide is killing of the whole family. So
okay.
if I was also not here, it would be considered a familicide because he would kill all of us.
Okay. And then tell us what filicide is.
Filicide is the act of a parent killing a child or children.
Okay. And so I want to talk about some of the other lethality, the top lethality risks, right?
Yep.
And whether you had any of those whether you noticed any of those with Brock.
I had all of them. I had all of them.
Okay. You talked about the domestic abuse, the coercive control. You talked about the threats of suicide and the threats of homicide or killing others.
Yep.
He had access to firearms or weapons.
Yep.
Okay, that's also a big risk, right?
Yep.
What about substance abuse?
No, not in our case.
Okay, so that was not in existence, but that is also a very, very high lethality risk. Obviously, using substances, especially to the point of inebriation, decreases your inhibitions, makes you more likely to act out, makes you more likely to act dangerously or not think clearly. And if you're already not thinking clearly or you're irrational, adding another layer of that onto things can make things escalate very, very quickly. Yeah. What about stalking? Did he exhibit any stalking behaviors?
He would ask me to get back together with him a lot. And so this is where my attorney failed, where I would take the text messages or emails that he sent me. And now I know that the attorney should have been like, okay, for each time he does that, you need to call the police and file a report, right? But my attorney just was like, okay, give those to me and I'll tell his attorney to tell him to stop, right? And we know that that's not sufficient. So I was not given the proper information on that. So unfortunately. So as far as stalking, I would just say the text messages, the coercion of trying to get back together with me, but no, not necessarily stalking in my case.
Okay. So ladies, whenever you have a combination, I believe I don't believe I put on the screen. Oh, yes, I did. The strangulation and strangulation. If he's physically abusive.
Yeah, he strangled me as well, but that was in our relationship. I got strangled many times and they say that you're at 600% higher of a risk of homicide if you were strangled by a partner. And that's only once. So I was strangled multiple times.
Right. And I think I also read in your book, he also threw a pocket knife at you that actually went into your leg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you have physical abuse, if you have strangulation, if you have domestic, if there's just domestic abuse and coercive control in combination with untreated mental health, with, a lot of those warning signs with the mental health, like the delusional thinking, the psychosis, that kind of thing, the threats of suicide, the threats of homicide, the substance abuse, the access to weapons, and then the stalking behavior. This is like together in combination, a very, very serious combination of behaviors that should send off red flags, warning signs to you, that you could be at escalated risk of lethality. And the more of those factors you have, the higher your risk for lethality.
Yeah.
So,
you don't need all of them. You
right.
could just have a couple, like 2 or 3, and you could still be at a high risk. You can't just be like, oh, I don't have that one. Like, I don't have substance abuse in my case, and I didn't really have stalking, but we still ended with a filicide suicide. So,
yes. Yeah. But yeah, I think the important thing is to identify if you have any of those red flags or those lethality risks. I want everyone to be protective, right? I want you to be on guard, on the lookout. I want you to be documenting, paying attention, talking to your attorney, doing what you need to do, creating a safety plan, do what you need to do to protect yourself and protect your children. But I also don't want everyone to be completely freaked out at the end of this episode because you've got domestic abuse. And so you think, at the end of this episode, you're going to die, your children are going to die. thank the Lord, luckily, that is the rare case. And so this is not meant to be, a fear inducing episode. It is to teach you these things to help protect you and your children.
Correct.
Yeah. And so how long was it after he got the 50-50 custody where things just really started to go downhill?
6 months from the date of custody to the date of the murders. It was 6 months. And we had that psychological evaluation hearing about a little over a month before they died. So even at the psychological hearing where we went over the information that only took 10 minutes, by the way, they could have stopped it then, and only a little over a month. That was April 4th, 2024. And a little over a month on May 19th, 2024, they were murdered.
Did anything happen in the interim between the orders going into place and then the filicide? Was there anything that he did that set off, huge warning signs that your attorney could have done legally to try to help protect Alec and Lydia? Or was it just you went from the hearing to the incident and then it was just too late?
I mean, there was always those coercive text messages and emails of wanting to get back together with me, right? And so we do know that in filicide cases, that if the perpetrator loses control, they sometimes commit what's called revenge filicide. And so in my case, I don't know if it was that. I don't know if it's a mixture in my case. It's not one thing or the other thing. But I do know that, like, if my attorney would have said, call the police at each one of these intervals when he's sending you text messages and emails that he's breaking the protection order, I also believe that could have maybe stopped it as well.
Okay.
But you never know.
Right. I mean, these things are outside of our control, right? And I think that's, as survivors of domestic violence, we put too much blame and guilt on ourselves for things that are outside of our control, right? We do the best that we can as moms, as wives, as sisters, mothers, whatever your relationship may be, we are doing the best that we can in a very, very difficult situation. And especially if you're going through family court and you feel like the system is against you. So we cannot blame ourselves. Absolutely not. But let's talk about like what you're up to these days, because you are turning pain into purpose. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about, let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah. So Voices Against Filicide is my podcast. The 3rd season actually just came out yesterday. It's a very special 2-part episode that was released yesterday. It's the 2-year anniversary. I talk about Alec and Lydia. I talk about my favorite memories of them. I talk about my case a little bit, what I'm doing now, all of the things. I'm interviewed by my podcast producer, Rachel Holloway. And so she sat down with me and interviewed me for that. And it was such a great episode. We're very excited for season 3 because we've kind of changed the schedule. We know that we want our viewers wanted to see more content more quickly. And so we decided to make the podcast episodes come out every week on every Wednesday. So before it was bi-weekly, now this season it's going to be every week. There'll be a new episode released. And so we're really excited. This season, I sit down with more domestic violence coalitions and people in that field. I sit down with more parents that have lost children to filicide, and I get to talk about that with them and who their kids were and what happened in their case. And so just bringing more awareness to filicide. And season 1 and season 2 are also great. So if you want to binge those to get caught up, I sit down with legislators in season 2. I sit down. I don't know if any of your viewers are familiar with Dr. Cochiola, but she's on an episode of season 2. So I sit down with Dr. Catherine Spearman, who is spearheading a research study at Penn State University on Filicide. I sit down with her in season 2. So we're very excited for season 3, though, and what's to come. So please subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you like the episodes, please share them. And also please leave a 5-star rating and review.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can they find the podcast?
Yeah, wherever they stream. So they can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, any platform that puts podcasts out there. They also can go to my Hope in the Pain YouTube channel, and it's on there as well. So.
Okay, that's awesome. And let's also talk about some of the advocacy work you've been doing, because you have been a busy bee.
Yeah. Yes. I think I was told the other day, when somebody dies that you love, it's like, where do you put all that love? And I choose to put all that love into saving other children and advocacy work. And so that's what I've chosen to do, because if I don't put it somewhere, it's just going to eat me alive. So That's what I'm doing. So my legislation is called the Alec and Lydia Act. It's HB or House Bill 2995 in Arizona. It is a domestic violence and coercive control bill, and it will make sure that coercive control is underneath that umbrella of domestic violence in Arizona state law. Which will make Arizona the 11th state in the country to include coercive control underneath that umbrella of domestic violence. It will also make sure that child safety is the number one priority when they are in family court. So they have to look at those best interest factors and make sure that the child safety is first, because we've had the best interest factors, but in my case, and in many cases, they are not used. It's there as a tool, but judges don't use it. So we're making sure that the child safety comes first. So if there's any sort of domestic violence allegations, it doesn't matter if it's coercive control, strangulation, stalking, technological, like if they take your technology, any of those things, they will be looked at, and the perpetrator will lose unsupervised time, and they will go to supervised time until they can overcome the presumption of what transpired.
That's amazing.
The other thing that it will include is making sure that judges have to put their findings in temporary orders, because right now in Arizona, they only had to do their findings in final orders. And in my case, that's why we got all those wackadoodle, orders and temporary orders, like me tracking his medication. And so this will make sure that those kinds of things don't happen, because the judges have to put their why they're doing something behind their orders. They have to explain it. And so that's huge to me, because Alec and Lydia were murdered in temporary orders. We didn't even get to final orders. And the last thing is just making sure with, that temporary orders, it's keeping those judges held accountable for that, right? And so those are big. So those are the 3 main things. And I'm so excited. Once I'm done passing it in Arizona, it's going to the Senate floor very soon. And we do have support on both sides. And we are very hopeful that it will be signed by Governor Katie Hobbs as soon as it gets to her desk. And it does have a effective date once it's signed, as immediately it will go into effect. So
Awesome.
that, like, the very next day after she signs it. And the judges will have training on it as well. And so they'll know what they need to do to implement the new legislation.
That's amazing. Because I see in your update here, it looks like it passed maybe the House of Representatives.
Yeah, it passed the House of Representatives. It passed because there's different steps, right? So it started in the House because it's a House bill. So it passed the House committee. Then it goes to the House floor. It passed that. Then it goes to the Senate committee. And for my case, it went to the Senate Committee on Federalism and Family Court, and it passed there. Then it goes to the Senate floor. So that's the step that we're on. So there's many steps in order to get a bill passed.
That's awesome. And you've been spreading your word. You've been spreading this information all across the United States, not just limited to Arizona.
No, and I live in Michigan now, so my home state. So yeah, it's all over the country. I've done events in New Mexico. I've done events in Arizona. I've done events all over the country. I'm going to Las Vegas next week and doing an event there. So all over the country, I had the opportunity, such a blessing, to sit down and interview with Dr. Phil McGraw. Mm-hmm. And that was like amazing because it's such a national platform. And I have more national platforms coming. I can't share yet, but they will be coming. They're on the docket. So.
Yeah. So Hope was on Dr. Phil. I've been trying to find a link to be able to go back and watch it later, but I haven't been able to find it yet. So maybe you can send that to me and I'll put it in the description below.
Yes. They haven't posted it yet. So okay. It aired on TV and they wait about a week for it to go up live on his podcast / YouTube channel.
Okay, so come back. I'll put it in the description, the link in the description below so that you can access that link. And also I'm going to put, if you would like a free safety planning guide, I'm also going to put a link so that you can get access to the free safety plan. And that'll be in the YouTube link below after the Q&A is over today, to get that so you can start planning for your safety. Because separation and divorce, that process is the most dangerous time, right, in the abuse process, because he feels like he's losing control, and that's his way of getting control back. And that, I'm not saying that to keep you from leaving, because if you're in an abusive relationship, you need to leave.
I want people to know that it will still occur even if you don't leave. You are not safe just because you don't leave. You are still in danger.
Yes, absolutely. And so we're coming to the close of our time, but I want to talk just really briefly about forgiveness. Because it's hope in the pain, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try not to cry, but your book.
I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Your book, There's Still Hope. I read it, like I said, in one night. And your chapter 15, My Unwavering Faith, right? When we talk about our faith. And for those of you all maybe who are struggling with faith, maybe don't have faith yet, or really struggling with where God has you or where he's leading you, and you feel lost, you feel angry. Maybe you've been abused by the church. Maybe there have been people in your life that have just taught you things that are wrong. God's heart, God didn't plan for this to happen to these children, right? He is not a God of oppression. He is a God of peace. Mm-hmm. He is a God of freedom. And that is not the desire of his heart. And when you wrote in your book, I don't know if you mind if I read.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you say, there is a peace I hold close, the peace of knowing that my parents are with Alec and Lydia in heaven, watching over them until it's my time to join them. I picture them all together, whole and free from pain, surrounded by the light of Jesus's love. And yes, I even believe that Brock is there too. Healthy, restored, and no longer bound by the darkness that consumed him on this earth. That belief doesn't come from denial. It comes from faith. The kind of faith that God calls us to have, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. I know this might not be a popular opinion, and some people may read this and question how I could ever find forgiveness for someone who did something so unthinkable. But forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about choosing to let God carry the pain so it no longer destroys the heart that's behind it. The truth is, Brock loved Jesus. He had a genuine faith and brought others to know him. Somewhere along the way, his mind became sick and broken, and the darkness took over. But I do believe that when he left this world, Jesus met him with the same love and mercy that he offers each one of us. God's grace does not have limits, and I choose to believe that Brock has been forgiven, healed, and made whole in heaven. When I read that part of your book, I was undone. Mm-hmm. Like, I literally sobbed for the longest time. It's just the heart of God, right?
Yeah.
The heart of Christ. This is the peace that surpasses all understanding.
Yep.
And that's why forgiveness is so important. And if we don't forgive, it will eat you from the inside out, right? It will just destroy your life.
Yeah.
And it is something that, like, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, right? So as believers, Christ gives us the capacity and the ability to forgive the most difficult things.
Yeah.
And so how important has forgiveness been for you in this process?
It's been huge. I don't think I could do what I'm doing without forgiveness. Without this, I couldn't be speaking to you right now and talking about my journey and what transpired without forgiveness, because I would be walking around, like you said, with a hardened heart, and it no longer would hurt him. He's not here anymore. It would just, like you said, eat me from the inside out. And I don't want to live like that. And I know that, like you said, God didn't make this happen. I believe that God gives us free will, and Brock had free will to do what he did. But I do believe that God met him and the kids in heaven after their passing. And so I have to hold on to that. Everything is, even the stuff that's meant for evil will be turned to good if we put it into God's hands. And so I definitely believe that, and I am a walking testament of that. I want to share with you guys, like I shared before, I was a special education teacher before this. I was not a public speaker in this format. I've never done legislation. I had no idea how to do a podcast. I had no idea how to do social media, but God just kept opening doors and putting people in my life to have each of these things. I mean, I had no idea how to author a book, but God does. God has the plan set for us. And I don't know what that looks like in the next year, the next 5 years, 20 years from now. But I do know that God walks with me every single day. He is right beside me. I kind of imagine us like interlocking arms and kind of like walking together. That's how I imagine it in my head. And I can feel him. And I know that through the Holy Spirit, he is with me. And I have been able to educate and help and get women out of dangerous situations because I'm able to share my story so openly and honestly. And that's all I can do. And I think keeping Alec and Lydia's legacy alive with the Alec and Lydia Act, with the podcast, with my book, it will save children for decades to come, more than I can possibly imagine.
Right. Yes. And thank you, Hope, for your faithfulness and for taking the tragedy that you have suffered through and turning it into so much good, right? You are exposing the darkness and you're shining a light on the world. And I love when I get on social media now, there is so much buzz, right? There's so much information. You're seeing it everywhere. All about coercive control, all about family court awareness, all about things that are happening with children, all about children's rights. More and more and more information is out there now than ever before. And that is such a good thing, right? Yes. And that's because people like you and me are speaking up. We're sharing our stories. We're sharing information. And you ladies can do that too, right? Mm-hmm. The folks that are watching here today, you can turn your pain into purpose as well. There's an appropriate time and place to do that. If you're in the middle of a family court action, right now, that might not be the best time for you to get on social media.
No.
But there is a time and place for you to do that. If there's one thing that Satan cannot steal from you, it is your testimony, right? So share your story. Again, abuse thrives in the darkness. We want to bring it forth to the light. So Hope, we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to ask, do you have an encouragement or anything you want to leave with our audience today who they're feeling maybe overwhelmed by grief or anger right now? Any kind of hope or encouragement that you can leave with them?
Yeah, there's always hope in the pain. There's always going to be pain. God didn't say that we won't have pain, but he said that he will meet us in our pain and walk through it with us. And if you just surrender it to him and give it to him and leave it, you will be set free with a peace that surpasses all understanding.
Mm-hmm. Amen. And I forgot to mention, so Hope is on the lookout for someone to help her spread her message, get more information out there about Filicide, and help her with social media and connecting and networking with other folks to continue on her advocacy efforts. So if you have a heart for children, if you have a heart for victims, and you have a skill set that understands social media and networking and all of those things, get in touch with us. I'm going to put you can get in touch with me and I'll relay the information to Hope. So livefreelegal@gmail.com. She would love to connect with you. If you have that skill set and you would like to help her, Hope, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, you can also just follow me on social media at Hope in the Pain, and you can private message me on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And then, yes, you can email Tiffany, and then she'll send that information on over, and I will be in contact with you, and we'll go from there and see if it's a good fit.
Okay. Thank you so much. So Hope, I just want to thank you so much for being here today. This was such a profound gift. This has been one of my favorite Q&As so far.
Thanks.
Yeah. Your children's lives mattered and their memory matters. Your story matters. And I'm so glad that you're telling it so vocally. I love the way God is using your voice to help protect countless other women and children. So thank you for allowing us to witness your courage and your faith today.
Thank you.
I love how you said in your book, that Alec and Lydia are with your mom and dad, in heaven, running all around, having a good time, right? I can't wait till we get to heaven one day and we get to see through God's eyes the lives that have been impacted by the work that we've done.
Yes.
And that's not what it's about, but it is kingdom work, right?
Yes.
And so just remember, as we kind of close out today, Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." So if you are feeling a little bit heavy today, I hope this episode gave you some comfort, and hope to those who feel like their story is beyond redemption, because it is not.
It's not.
It is absolutely not. So if you're navigating family court with an abusive spouse, please check us out at www.livefreelegal.com. We have a live Q&A every third Thursday at noon right here at YouTube. And I also post a webcast every Tuesday at 7 p.m. and on Tuesdays, right? Did I just say that? So check us out there. Check out Hope's book, There's Still Hope, on Amazon. Follow her, Hope in the Pain, and check out her podcast. Please support Hope. And no matter what you have endured, your story is not over. There is hope even in the pain. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hope.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.